Welcome back to another great episode of Comedians in Bed. I'm your host, Ty Erskine, and I have another great comedian here for you today. Now, when I found her video, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this authority. I love this passion. I love the fact that she's going to stomp her foot on stage and command everybody's attention. Not just with her funny, but with her presence. And I love that about people. This next comedian that I have is nothing short of great. Coming all the way from LA, please, everybody, give a round of applause for Pruett, everybody.
What's up? StreamYard. Hi, his weird cat. Love it. Straight out of Hollywood.
Yes.
What's going on?
Somebody said that I should start asking people where they sleeping these days because comedians sleep wherever.
Right here, baby. I'm in bed. I didn't know if that was prescribed as part of the podcast, but I got in bed. I got the 300 count flax natural linen sheets. I'm an adult comedian, okay? I'm not sleeping in my dang car anymore. I'm not sleeping on somebody's couch. I'm a grown woman and I got the queen size bed with the topper, okay?
Oh, you got the topper. You fancy? You got a
Got
lot of money.
two toppers.
See, I don't like anything that's gonna make the bed more taller because I'm only 5'5", so I like it to be like real nice and even. Or do you got a stool?
I'm also 5'5", but bud, we can get in the bed. It's gonna be okay.
That is true. Now, were you born and raised in LA?
No, I'm from Portland, Oregon, so I started doing stand up and I got out here about 5 years ago.
So what made you make the move out there to good old LA?
Portland couldn't hold me. I hit my peak. It was me and Damian Lillard. And Dame said, "I'm staying. I still have work to do here." And I said, "That's okay. I'm done. I'm out." No, it was great. Portland is such a great place to do stand up. I think a good artist community is a place where artists can afford to live, a place where artists have audiences that value the arts and are smart and willing to come out and see stuff and have the income and like free time to do that. And it's just a great culture. Like they really value kind of just supporting live comedy. So it was a great place to start. LA became sort of the mission because it's tough to just do comedy. You really have to diversify and be a creative in more than one way, a multi hyphenate, as they say in these streets of Hollywood. So that's what I came here to do. I'm acting and writing also, and it's going good.
What made you know that it was time to make that move out to LA?
Well, Ty, I'm a witch, and so I'm speaking to the wind about what when things are time. You're laughing, but I am a witch, and no, I listen to signs. A bar that I had been working at for 10 years closed. Um, I had a boyfriend cheat on me.
That'll do it. That'll do
It
it.
was like, all right, this is a wrap. And I had always kind of pointed my finger to the sky, Babe Ruth, and knew that I wanted to pick up. I grew up in Portland. I think it's healthy for anybody to get away from their hometown at some point and figure out who they are in the larger context of the world. So that was part of it. Oh, also, and this is great for newer comedians. Like I started going to comedy festivals and meeting these gatekeepers in the industry who told me, they're like, "It's time, dude, like come on down." And I was skeptical. I was like, "Hey, I don't really see people like me on TV. I don't really see people who look like me in the limelight." And they said, "No, it's your time, Bree Pruitt." And sure enough, like there's big girls on TV now. We got Lizzo. Uh, we got Barbie Ferreira, the big girl from Euphoria. We're doing fine. So it was yeah, I had some direct advice from people in the industry, and yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, yeah. I listen. I am a fan. Not saying that you are, but I'm a fan of BBW. So I'm from Columbus, Ohio, right?
Okay.
Where we're the number one like place in the world for like new fast food restaurants. So we have them all. Like White Castles, White Castles and Wendy's. Two fast food headquarters is located here in Columbus. So I have no problem with it at all. And when you go
Yeah,
on stage and people see you, do you feel like you're representing more than yourself?
I really do, and when I started stand up 12 years ago, right? And I know that's hard to believe because I look so young and beautiful. You must ask yourself, Pruett, did you start stand up when you were a baby? And it's true, I did. But when I was, when I started in like the mid aughts, I felt like I needed to talk about that a lot. I needed to say like, I'm a big girl. Here's my experience. Um, and I did and do identify as a BBW. Thank you for the love. Right? Yeah, back then it was kind of a controversial term. I had a joke back then about Drake calling the girls BBW. Wanna so, I don't know if I can
Go
quote the
ahead.
Drake lyrics here on
Be
StreamYard.
yourself.
Okay, suck you dry and then eat some lunch with you, right? So that was what I was talking about back in the day, and at this point, it's a little bit different. The conversation's moved forward. That's really important for comedians to do is kind of move forward. And so now I think what I'm doing is a lot less controversial, which it should never be controversial to like look like yourself, but
Mhm.
it was, and especially for women. Lookism is really, objectification is a huge part of our lives. And so when you're on stage taking up that space as a woman, you do have to address the elephant in the room, which might be like kind of internalized fat phobia and objectification of women. So that's what I was about.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you gain in an industry that really wasn't, a fan of, I'll just say like what you look like or what you
Yeah.
represent? How do you go up there with confidence of like your sensibility of self and more so like your sex appeal?
I like that you brought up my sex appeal. It's an important topic that not enough people are talking about, frankly. Um, I I really feel like I actually have a TED Talk out there, and people can look that up. My TED Talk is about beauty standards and how they change. And my tip for anybody who's trying to figure out their confidence and their sex appeal is to fake it and to just, especially if you're an artist, to make your art about yourself and how you walk through this world. Um, I think it's really key for anybody struggling with their confidence to find people who look like them, to model themselves after, to just even have in your periphery. I tell people to fix your feed. If you've got a timeline that makes you feel like crap, get that trash out of here. You don't need to have a bunch of skinny bitches in your timeline telling you that you're not it when you can. There's like thousands of beautiful fat babes on Insta that will, you feel like, oh, damn, if she can do it, so can I. So I really do think that like having people who model confidence will get you there. And I'm telling you, it's a magic spell. I'm a witch. When you get on stage and start talking yourself up, you really start believing it. And that's why I also think it's a good thing for comedians not to say anything on stage that isn't true. You can exaggerate. That's kind of our job, is right, to be silly. But if you're saying something like a false premise is something that comes up in comedy a lot. You don't want to state a false premise. You don't want to dumb yourself down, say something that isn't true, because you might start believing it. And that's why I think a lot of these comedians get sucked into really ghoulish ideology, really hateful, ghoulish ideology, because they're not being true to themselves.
Right, right, right. No, I agree. I think when I go up there and I think when I go up there and I uh talk about the things that I'm into, sometimes it can get like a little bit of a look, you know what I'm saying? I talk about how, I enjoy like plus size women just because that's what I grew up around and stuff like that. So that's kind of all I know. And growing up, like I didn't really realize how the world viewed women till I got to college, which was real crazy. Like I didn't know about the pay or like how people view women or anything like that. When you go up there and you do comedy, what it is about, are you, is there like a specific message that you want to get out to men from like, hey, this is women, this is what I have to say, or are you just going up there and telling your own story?
Well, I think I'm not talking to you. I'm definitely not talking to men like you who are already won over. There was a time when I felt like I needed to defend my value as a big woman, especially in certain places. As you know, white supremacy is alive and well, and the beauty standards that those systems enact on women, like fat phobia, are rooted in white supremacy. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, which was by design one of the whitest places in the country, and so the beauty standards there are different than in your hometown of Columbus, Ohio. My boyfriend's from the South, and that's a similar, thing that he just grew up with a different beauty standard. So I was fighting I was fighting uphill. I was running uphill, right? When I'm trying to assert my value to these white men in the Pacific Northwest. It's going to be different other places, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, the I start with me. I start by trying to make myself laugh, start by saying something that I know is true. And frankly, most of my jokes are for women. And that's been also really rewarding because there aren't a lot of, well, now there are, but I think comedy specifically by women for women is a developing industry, and it certainly was when I started. Yeah.
Yeah, I like when you guys go up there and you talk about the things from your perspective, your side of things. I'm like, I've never knew that or, would have thought that. So do you have guys after the show come up to you and be like, that's really how you guys think?
I don't think any guy likes to reveal that they didn't know something or that I taught them something, but I think
Yeah,
that is happening, certainly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I remember this one comic out here. She was talking about how, like some guys that she's basically like they don't have headboards, and I was like, dang, how many times have I not had a headboard? Like every time y'all go up there, it makes me really think about like, okay, am I this guy? Like, so
I've written some jokes that are educational for these reasons. I wrote a joke about STD testing at Planned Parenthood. I've written jokes about IUDs. Uh, I'll go ahead and drop this knowledge. IUDs are good for 6 years. Okay, that's what they tell you. They're good for 6 years. And if you forget, and you're going on year 7.5, you'll learn that actually IUDs are good for 8 years, but they tell women they're good for 6 years because they
mm.
don't trust us. And that's fair because I was fucking up. So it's good info for the people to have, men and women.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely understand it. So how do we get from like, how did first of all, how did we get on stage? Like when did you realize and know that you were funny?
Yeah. So I started as an actor in the theater. I got a theater degree and I was doing, Shakespeare and stuff. And a big girl who's like 19 years old in theater, you don't get to play Juliet. You got to play the nurse. You got to play the old lady. And those are the comic parts. And so from, time I was like 13, I was playing comic parts. Um, I think I'm a sensitive person and I'm a sweet person, and the world is hard and cruel. And if you're a person who's experienced pain, you either laugh about it or you, I don't know, go to a darker place. And I think one of my ways to survive was always laughing about it. My family's got a pretty dark, disgusting sense of humor. They're, man, dirty. I heard the dirtiest jokes. I was just thinking about that. My grandfather's dead, may he rest in peace. He would tell me the dirtiest jokes he learned in the Navy when I was like 8 years old, 10 years old. It was too early. I had unfettered access to Showtime after like 11 p.m. It was wild. I watched all the stand up. I watched Whoopi, I watched Rosie, Robin Williams, Billy Crystal, and Steve Martin. Those guys were my heroes. For some reason, it just called to me. Some things just call to you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How is acting showing up in your artistic career now?
Yeah. So yeah, from theater, I jumped into sketch comedy and improv comedy, and that's all acting. And it shows up in commitment. You don't bail on a bit. It's not that you pretend to be feeling something. You actually feel it. You actually are in the moment, and it's an intensity that I don't think all comedians don't have that training.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing that has helped me on stage, especially when it comes to crowd work, is doing improv class and basically just, growing up in my family, just riffing on each other. But definitely improv class. And a lot of people ask me, like, how did I develop that skill? And I'm like, really just like improv class. It's really those secondary skills that do show up when you're on the big stage.
Absolutely. I do not like crowd work. And part of the reason why is because, like, a lot of comedians have a fan base where the the comedian roasts them and is expected to kind of roast them and is expected to kind of give them hell. My fans are the sweetest, gentlest humans. They are very kind, and they do not deserve that. So I have a hard time, and I'm not really prepared because people are not usually rude to me. When they are, usually I get real mad, and then it switches my stage persona, which is, I'm a good-natured person on stage. I'm not like a villain.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit trickier for me, but that training of improv, it'll help me switch things up. It'll help me just stay in the moment, stay in that holy moment, aware of everything that's happening around me. The waiters, the waitresses coming through the club, the guy who's got chicken fingers at table one, the loud ladies in the second row that are like too deep in the Chardonnay, and that awareness is um, it unites the room, and that's what we're there to do. We're there to be one and laugh together.
So how do you play to that on stage? If you know somebody on the right of you, they're having a loud conversation,
Sure.
and then the person to the left of you, they're not giving you any type of energy. They're just looking at you like this. But then
Yeah.
all the people, you're getting laughs in the middle. How do you play to that on crowd? Because that's different from like a bar show or like a little local show when you're in a big, theater or comedy club. How do you play to that?
If people are chatty, usually I don't like to give them a lot of silence to fill. So that's until I get the room together. If the room is not together, I know comedians are watching this. Sometimes you just come into a room and the room is not together. Everybody's attention is otherwise. Sometimes I'll do something kind of controversial. If it's a rowdy room, I know I'll lead with something dirty. That'll get everybody's attention. Sex sells. Everybody knows that. Um, I like to think of myself as an archer when I'm in a big room, like a Katniss Everdeen. I'm
Hmm.
like launching those jokes where they need to go. So if somebody's in the front row giving me nothing, I'm going to engage with the person right behind you. I'm going to engage with, oh my gosh, one time I opened for this comedian who was Mormon. He was a reformed Mormon. And I could feel that like half the room was not for me. They don't even want women to have microphones, frankly. They think
Yeah,
that's a sin.
yeah.
So I was like literally just, all right, this is not your side of the room. This is your side of the room, and I'm going to give them everything. And sometimes it's as simple as, this is my theater training, keeping your shoulders at 180 degrees or at a parallel of where you're trying to launch. So I'm like literally thinking of myself as an archer. If I'm launching my jokes that way, I'm pointing this way. So just like little performance skills. If a room is really chatty and maybe the sound system is bad, I'm going to focus on my articulation, making sure I'm extremely well understood. If it's a room that's kind of slow, I'm going to slow down. So again, all of that attention bringing me closer to my performance. Now that's like performance skills, but yeah, choosing what jokes I'm going to tell, thinking about the order, thinking about my closer. Maybe I move my closer up, and keeping those, that's improv, keeping my attention in multiple things at the same time while I'm speaking.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that that's what we're up there doing. Like they see us laughing, but there's we're like quarterbacks up there. We got so much to read and so much to take in. So have you ever like been on a stage and it wasn't going how you wanted to go, so you just flipped what you were doing mid set and changed the whole direction? Like how do you operate that when it's not going the way that you wanted to go, or do you just sit in it?
Interesting. I usually have a plan. Um, there isn't, trying to think. There's definitely been times like on the road where I was early in my career, I was going to casinos, like dinner theater in Eastern Oregon, which for those of you who don't know, it's like a very rural environment. I've definitely been like, okay, I was going to do new material, but like, let's go back to stuff I'm more confident about. But generally, I stick to the plan. I can change the order, but usually there's not like a topic. Right before the pandemic, I went to Canada for my first time to do stand up, and Canadian audiences were real tight. It was kind of a rural, not rural, suburban. It was suburban Ontario, and people were pretty tight. And I could kind of tell they weren't comfortable when I was talking about dirty stuff, and they weren't comfortable about the big girl stuff. And I was like, okay, let me talk about being an aunt, or being a maternal figure. That's very relatable. So something like that. Widening the net.
Yeah, yeah. Now you said something about your persona. How did you find, like, I guess when you say persona, you say, I would mean it as like your voice. How did you find your persona or your voice on stage, or did you find it off stage? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, it's the work. The work kind of directs where you go. It's like the rudder on your boat, where the work is going to guide you into what you want to say, and that's going to inform how you say it. A really funny comedian named Mike Kaplan told me when I was first starting out that there's usually an onstage persona and an offstage persona, and over time they kind of come together. And now I feel like that's really who I am when I'm on stage. Last night I did my show in LA. It's in downtown LA. It's called Crane's Comedy. If you're ever in LA, it's really fun. And I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I knew I had a lot of energy. And so I just unleashed on these people. And um, it was great, and I was like, okay, that's who I am. That's an intense version of who I am. And but I would talk exactly the same way off stage, and that would be normal now. So that's what happened.
Yeah. Speaking of on stage, I did have a clip that I wanted to look at just to give the people just a little sense of what you're like on stage. Hold on, here we go.
You got to earn that knowledge.
That's on me. That's on me.
I've been in LA 2 years now, lost a ton of weight, right? Mostly stress and poverty and not knowing where the biscuits are. You know, you got to earn that knowledge. So I've lost a lot of weight, which is fine, but I've always stand for fat women. And now I'm thick or whatever, but it's cool to be fat because we live in this post-Kardashian fat ass era, you know, and that's not cool because it was not easy for me, you know. When I was a young person, I had one store to shop at the mall, Lane Bryant, which is fine, you know. It's not a good store. It's a store you shop at when you want to look like a substitute teacher, you know. It's a lot of business casual, which is fine, but that's not a good look when you're in middle school, right? You don't want to go to middle school every day, and then when you miss a day, the teacher's like, "Where's Bree?" And everybody's like, "I think she's temping. I think she had a job interview, and that's why she couldn't make it to social studies today. She's in HR now. She's not in the 7th grade anymore." That's my life. It's good to be fat now, right?
That was good, man.
Those jokes are a little old at this point, and so
Yeah.
they feel kind of dated to me. But thank you. And that's like what I was talking about, how being a big girl is, you know, in 2022, even like, no, we love it. Like, we're
Right.
all about it. And fuck the Kardashians. So I do think like it's a little bit cringe to look at material that are even a few years old. It just moves so fast.
Yeah. So how did we get from moving to LA, you know, doing shit my fault, starting in Portland, you know, doing open mics there, doing shows there, and then we take that leap to LA to getting on the Just for Laughs digital stage, and not only that, but Comedy Central as well.
Yeah. I have only everything that I thought was important was not important. Every opportunity that I was like, okay, this is it, this is my break, was not it. And every set where I just took a swing, I mean, every comedian should show up. I mean, I don't know, man. I think perfectionism is a thing that a lot of people struggle with right now, right? And you know, I read this thing like perfectionism is a symptom of white supremacy. And I agree. And we're clowns and we should be fucking clowning around. But at the same time, I do try to make every set count. I am trying to get on stage and really giving it 100%. Whether I hit it, I'm trying to be more gentle with myself about, you know, it's not all on you for the show to go great. There are a lot of factors that are not about you, the producers, the sound system, what kind of mood everybody was in, the election results that came in that day. Um, these are things that impact how good a show goes. And so I'm trying not to beat myself about it, but every good thing that's come to me has come because I showed up. I showed up for the gig. I took a swing. The content was true, and I gave it a shot. I gave it my best shot, and that's all the good stuff that's come my way as a result of that. Yeah.
When you get these opportunities like this, you know, that could let people see your face and see what you're all about. Is there extra pep in your step? Are you trying to hit that home run? What is that feeling like gearing up
What do
for
you
that?
mean?
Just like, you know, like if you did like, you know, if you did like a bar show and then now you're performing at Comedy Central, are you like a little bit more prep? Are you a little bit more energized? Like what's the different energy wise for that?
I guess I'm a little more confident, right? And that just comes with experience. If you do something over and over again, if you get on those bigger stages, you start surprising yourself what you're capable of, you know, and the consistency with which you're capable of doing it. Um, but keeping your energy up and not getting exhausted, it's, you know, that's real. You know, it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint, as they say. Not that I know anything about marathons or sprinting. It's not my business. It's not my specialty. Thank you. Thank you to the audience at home. Um, but it is real. because the winds are kind of fleeting, they, unless you're on fire in LA in this industry, you're not going to get your flowers anytime that you feel like it's time. It's just not going to happen. So you really better find some joy in your own self, in your own experience doing this thing, and potentially in your community. And I think it's really important for young comedians to build their own community, like an audience community. Like you should run a show and build something to
How,
sustain you.
yeah. How do you? My fault. I didn't mean to cut you off. How do
Right.
you keep your head up and keep your faith when everybody out there in LA is like going after the same thing you're going after?
It's rough. You got to have good people around you. That's what I gotta say. I have representation that believes in me. That was not something that would have been possible in Portland, and that's kind of why it's important to move forward and not stay in one spot. Not necessarily a physical spot, but just doing bigger, better things, taking bigger creative swings. And yeah, just looking at your community. Is anybody not rooting for you who should be? Let them go. It's not what you need.
Yeah, yeah. Now you are doing different things, like as far as acting and writing. And what aspects, like, are you writing? Are you in a writer's room, or are you just writing sketches for your own projects or things of that nature?
Good question. I aspire to be in a writing room. I aspire to make television and sell my stories and get these for a comedian, you got these joke ideas that are too big for a set. They got to be explored in a visual medium in a different way. So yeah, writing scripts, aspiring to be in a writing room. It's very competitive. Um, and the way you do it is to be visible as a comedian, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Why why does me telling jokes on stage indicate to anybody that I'm able to? But yeah, that's that's what is happening. That answer
Yeah,
your question?
yeah, yeah. And what ways have you been trying to get your foot in the door?
So yeah, so one thing that if you get representation, or even if you don't have representation, what happens is you start networking with these people that do development in Hollywood and New York and Atlanta and all the places that they make TV and movies. And they will tell you what they're looking for. You'll tell them about you. And then when they need a big girl to inform, because they've got a big character on a show, that they'll think of you because you're the girl who talks about body politics, or you're the girl who talks about being interracial. I talk about being mixed, white and Korean, and those kind of like just being yourself is really what people are looking for. So it's the networking piece that's really hard for me, but I'm lucky to have some help.
When you're mixed white and Korean, you said, what was that like growing up? Meaning, like, what was that experience like having different culturals, and one side of the family might do one thing, the other side do the other thing.
Yeah. In Portland, people, I'm pretty white presenting, right? So people, will say like, you're white, like we don't think you're Asian and stuff like that. I feel pretty strongly that people who are mixed race should identify as mixed race and not, if they look white, don't pass for white. Let people know that you're not white. Because again, white supremacy, she's everywhere. She's coming for you. Um, and I don't like people. It's diminishing. Don't tell me what I'm not.
Yeah.
The cultures in my household, I grew up with my grandmother and my mom, who are the Korean side of my family. And yeah, it's great. I'm lucky that, I'm lucky in a million ways, but I'm lucky that they were supportive of me being an outspoken broad, despite that being like maybe not a value that my great grandparents would have been down with, my Korean great grandparents would have been down with. So yeah, it was good.
One of the things I love about it, people with different cultures, is seeing Joe Coy's latest special on Netflix was really good. I'm not sure if that's. I think I've seen it something else, but it's been a long time before. And just hearing his experience and growing up, really gives you like a sense of like the comedian, but not just the comedian, like that side of a culture that you probably normally probably wouldn't know anything about.
This is like you were saying about how you were educated on women's experiences through listening to women. People get educated about the Asian experience, and then I know of a grip of mixed comedians who talk about their experiences and just that visibility. And like I said, also about how it's important to have people you look to model confidence or model, their identity. It's really assuring to people in audiences to see themselves on stage, and that helps us feel like ourselves in a society that is increasingly hegemonic. We're all trying to be the same, or really capitalism and commercialism is trying to make everybody feel like the same. And especially I'm in this like, this election moment where politicians are trying to, I mean, this red and blue, it's over. It's over. We all got to be more diverse. We got to be ourselves, and we got to look to each other to confirm and affirm each other's experiences and
Yeah,
identities.
yeah. Now earlier you talked about how you had some women that inspired you in the comedy game. I'm not sure if they would be on your route much Rushmore, but if not, who are some comics that are on your Mount Rushmore?
Mount Rushmore is so intense. It's a mountain, it's like so permanent. So like it's like I kind of, because I want to say Whoopi, Billy, and Robin as the OGs, but for me it's got to be Maria Bamford, Margaret Cho. This is so random, but my guy is Paul F. Tompkins, and I don't know if anybody knows him. He is a silly man, and there's something about his first two albums really resonated me, and part of it is because he's not ripping on anybody. There's no punching down, up, in the middle. I mean, if there's any punching, it's just silly ideas, and somehow it's still like attacking some kind of status quo. I just love that.
Yeah.
And ugh, I love, if we're talking about like contemporaries, Naomi Ekperigin, the goat. She's so good. Um, Okay, that's the four. Is there five people on Mount Rushmore?
It's four. It's
Okay,
four.
perfect.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
a
no,
weird, that's a weird crew.
yeah,
Maria Bamford, Margaret Cho, Paul F. Tompkins, and Naomi Ekperigin. Bizarre.
yeah, yeah. It's nothing
Bizarre.
wrong.
Nightmare blunt rotation.
How do you? Let me ask you. Do you study comedy? And if so, what does that look like for you?
It's hard because you don't want to watch too much comedy,
I
stand up,
know.
in my opinion. You can. It'll rot your brain. It'll defeat your spirit, especially when you see people who are so funny. I'm like, how could I ever, compete with this? But gosh, you gotta watch comedy. I watch myself, I watch my own tapes. You gotta watch the old tapes and listen to the old sets. I think maybe at the beginning it's more important than later. And again, it's the marathon. You can't burn yourself out. So it's whatever it works. I think is really
Ho-
important.
Um, why is it important to watch your own tape?
That's the playback, that's the instant replay. I find, I think a lot of people are like, oh, that was so, oh, I hated it, cringe, cringe, cringe. A lot of times I find that in the moment, I think I'm doing worse than I am. And so it's great to watch the tape to be like, oh, actually, that was great. They were with me there. I picked that up. I improved that joke. Um, so I usually get more, it's more of a positive experience. Um, I know for some people, it's hard to look at themselves, but You simply have to.
For me, it's the opposite. Like when I look back or when I listen back, like if I'm doing a voice recording, I'll be like that's not how it sounded when I was up there. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's because it's a different perspective, but sometimes that's why it's hard for me to listen back. Like I know like if I did solid or good, or sometimes I might surprise myself. Um, but that is like the hardest thing for me. It's like that's not how I remembered it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But how often why so are you recording yourself every time, like even when you go to the clubs, and how are you getting that footage?
Every set. Yeah. Now I think it's more important to record every set because it's sort of this new medium where we're putting stuff on social, especially the crowd work, the spontaneous stuff. There's kind of an appetite in the social media audiences for that kind of stuff. So that's important, and you can record with a very expensive camera. You can record with your phone, or you can do another thing. A lot of clubs have recordings now,
Yeah.
which is nice.
So when you go,
But
oh, my fault. Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, I record every set on my phone, the audio at least.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the minimum. Yeah.
So when you go on stage, like, is there anything you won't say, seeing that now times are so sensitive, or are you just going balls for the walls?
Oh, sensitivity. I I treat my audiences like a Fabergé egg. I do like to, and Jerry Seinfeld says that people are too sensitive. Well, then you're not good at being gentle with them, and you should work on that, bud. It's your old ass. So I kind of feel like I kind of feel like there's nothing that I won't say, but I will be very thoughtful about something I say that will be potentially harmful. I'm not trying to harm people. I'm trying to make them laugh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So one of the things that I've been struggling with in my writing is like not taking low hanging fruit. And common topic is uh, sex, right? We're all adults, we all have sex. So when you're early on, you may talk about sex a lot, but like, how do you know, like, okay, this isn't a low hanging fruit joke, even though the topic is so common?
If it's absolutely specific to your experience and you haven't heard it before, there's something about that your experience having sex or your experience being a sexual being that you haven't heard anybody else say. That's it. That's the money. That's the gold. And the whole idea of our job is we're naming things that everybody else is thinking. So
And is it too specific to your experience because that's what makes it the most authentic, which makes it as pure as funny or whatever?
yeah,
Okay.
specificity is funny. The more specific you can be with something, it's going to be funny. If only, even if it doesn't resonate with somebody, to know that that's your experience and it's so specific and you can see it and smell it and taste it. Well, maybe not taste it, but you can really feel like you're there. That's when things get good. That's when we connect. We connect
Yeah.
with each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
When
You're
you I'll say one more addendum to that,
uh,
which is when you start talking about things that are outside of your experience, you step out of your lane. That's when you're harmful because you're making assumptions about other people's experience, their bodies, their genitals, their families, whatever. Not genitals and families together. So people understand. Different thoughts entirely. But that's when you start stepping on people's toes. Dave
okay.
Chappelle.
Yeah. Speaking of family, what does your family say when they see your stand up?
My dad watched me do a half hour a few months ago, and he said, "Where'd you get that confidence?" And I said, "Not you, motherfucker." Yeah, they don't care. I think there's the saying like make art like your parents are dead, and all my grandparents are dead at this point, and my parents, they're over at this point. They're desensitized, so they don't care.
Yeah, yeah. Is it is it hard to date? I'm doing a whole three. There was no segue there. Is it hard to date knowing that you're a comedian? Do people try to like poke jokes at you or anything like that?
I think back when I was on Tinder when I was single, there was definitely a few dudes who were looking to know how to break into stand up more than get to know me. And, that's pretty easy to identify. Luckily, I'm in a very loving relationship right now where my boyfriend has seen me bomb, he's seen me crush, and he's seen me say utterly outlandish things on stage. And he's good with it, everything. So that's good.
Is that the first person you go to after your show?
Nah, he's not a part of it. He's not a comedian. He's a musician. He's not a part of this world. Um, and frankly, like he doesn't have the expertise. He's a sweet guy. He's got a great sense of humor, but I'm not writing for him. I'm writing for me and my audience.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. But if I have a hard time and I need some back rubs, yeah, I'm going straight to him.
What's the difference between Bree in Portland and Bree in LA?
I mean, in LA, I'm hella stressed out all the time. It's a stressful place to live. It's undeniably stressful. It's not as beautiful. My nervous system is dysregulated. I'm starving. There's no good food here. But in Portland, I was safe, and safety can be limiting.
Yeah. Yeah. How does it feel not to be in an environment that's not safe?
Yeah, I'm sick. I'm
how
nervous, stressed. I'm sick. Um,
do you manage that? How do you manage
Yeah,
your
I'm working on
stress?
it. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm figuring it out right now. I'm learning some grounding. The world of somatic therapy is opening to me. It's how to be in your body and get out of your mind, and learning how to meditate and breathe. And it's a marathon, and I didn't know that would be the next part of my creative journey was how to center myself. But it's really important.
Where did you find that type of therapy at? Because I just go to like talk therapy. So where did you?
Good.
Yeah.
Hi, you're crushing it, man. You're doing so great. I'm proud of you. Yeah, everybody needs some kind of therapy. And gosh, I don't know. All I'll say is I'm a witch, and you say what you need enough times and it'll show up.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you like the new Hocus Pocus 2? Was that appealing to
Get
you?
this, I haven't finished it.
Oh, you haven't? Well, I fell asleep on it too. Like,
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. This is a sleepy Halloween season for me.
I think we was that the movie we watched. I think me and my girlfriend, yeah, I made us like a fort and like had candy and everything and popcorn, and we fell right asleep on that movie.
That's so sweet. It's hard not to fall asleep in a fort.
I know, man. It's hard not to fall asleep after 30. That's what it is. Like that's the hardest part. Yes.
Wow, so much truth in this podcast.
Yes. How do you as we start to wrap it up here, how do you manage um your schedule? It is busy and just going from everyday life, doing the 9 to 5, then you got your own stuff you want to work on. Like how do you manage that? Or are you still trying to learn how to manage that?
Yeah, definitely still trying to learn how to manage that. If we're brass tacks, I automate everything. When you're running a podcast, I got to use scheduling software. Shout out Calendly, um, my calendar app. And just really leaning on my calendar and technology. I am not a naturally organized person.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge ongoing.
Breed, to anybody that's listening out there that wants to be a comedian or still on that journey of getting to wherever they want to be, what words of motivation do you have for them?
Well, I'm speaking specifically to women and people of color and gay people. We need you. We need you out here speaking your mind. And whether or not you're a comedian, capital C, or you are just going to be an outspoken person in your community, maybe you're going to run for political office. Please run for political office. We need you more now than ever. Um, what was the question? What should they do? What should they be? Build something, that's what I say. Build something, if it's a writing circle, if it's a like circle of three people who get together and they write jokes. If open mics are like, for me, open mics were not always a good experience, so having just safe people that I can riff around and be super silly around, so essential. um yeah, we need you.
Yeah.
Put yourself out there. Get in front of a microphone and see what happens. It's not that scary.
Yeah. Bree, tell people why they should listen to Comedians in Bed.
Oh man, this guy is amazing. Ty, he is a great listener. He's organized. He's thoughtful. He's put in a lot of work, I can tell, to hit this platform, and he's seeing a therapist. If anything, you can't afford therapy, maybe you get a little trickle down therapy from your guy Ty. I'm being completely serious. This was so amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh man, nah, I had fun, man. Bree, tell people where they can find you at.
Yeah, as the sun sets and my lighting is going away. It's at Brie Pruett across platforms, BRIPRUETT. It's right on the screen. And I do have an old podcast that you can listen to. You can do it with Brie Pruett. It's pretty heavy. It was a hard pandemic era artifact, so it's very deep and heavy and stressful, but also we're processing it together. So you can listen to that. You can check out my YouTube channel, see some clips, and laugh away.
Yeah, man, I listened to it this morning. It's great stuff. It's archives, is how I see it.
Archives. Yeah, that's what
Archives is how I see it, man. No, be sure to subscribe to Comedians in Bed. Check out my YouTube at Ty Erskine. Spotify, Google Play, wherever else you listen to podcasts. We thank you for listening to this episode with the amazing Brie Pruett. Check her out. Follow her on socials. Definitely hit up her YouTube before she blows up even more than what she is. Brie, we thank you so much, guys. We'll see you guys next week.